And then at 14, I saw Contact, which was that Jodie Foster, Matthew McConaughey movie. And it's weird because I remember watching it thinking like, oh, those crazy religious people, right? Like there was like one extremist religious guy who like blows himself up in the movie and stuff. And it was weird because that shaped my perception of religious people in general,
right?
Throughout high school and stuff. But yeah, I hit all those movies, Fire in the Sky, Cocoon, Close Encounters. I checked out all that stuff. And, without a spiritual foundation, I was adopting those worldviews, right? Mm-hmm. So I wasn't having any kind of grounded kind of spiritual perception. It was more, hey, yeah, Stargate's cool, crazy religious people, cool, aliens.
All roads lead to heaven.
Yeah. I mean, I probably wasn't that positive, but yeah, definitely. I, at the same time, I was super into music, Metallica. Mm-hmm. I was into like, I learned guitar, so Nirvana was a big thing.
Oh yeah.
Learning Soundgarden songs and Pearl Jam and all that stuff. And that was my goal in life. My goal in life was to become a rock star. It was drugs, sex, rock and roll, checking out Zeppelin, Black Sabbath, and Slayer, and all these bands. And it was like, oh man, I want to do that. In hindsight, it's interesting because you look at it now and it's like, wow, if you don't have Christ at the center of your life, then you automatically default on Satanism, and people don't really realize it. But as we record this, this past week we had the Grammys, and I'm sure you guys have checked out all the crazy satanic rituals going on.
Man, I haven't. I have to be honest. I'm a little bit willfully ignorant. I haven't watched TV or owned a television since like 2000.
Oh, that's good for you, man. That's really good.
It's just something I stopped. But when September 11th happened, I was glued to like my mom's television.
Right.
So.
Yeah, no, that's a big turning point too. I mean, I was, I'm sure you were probably in the same place. But
I was in my first year of or first semester of college.
Yeah, I was heading into college. My school started a little bit later at UC Irvine, but yeah, I was actually driving. That was the day I was supposed to drive in and get like my schedule and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But what's interesting is like I remember that happening, and I was like, what's going on? This is like a movie,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It didn't feel real. But what's interesting is, after that happened, it definitely made me question things. But because I was in college, it was like the next 4 years or so, like I could care less,
Yeah.
It's like college lifestyle. What's the next party, that kind of mentality. Right. I kind of went through college floating around, doing things I shouldn't do. And I actually got into college with a full scholarship with swimming. So
nice.
That was, it was cool, but it was kind of bad too because I was pretty burnt out of swimming at that point.
Had you peaked at all at that point, or were you still like,
absolutely.
Getting your time down?
No, I totally peaked in high school. Like I'm one of those few, because usually guys, when they, girls can peak or get stronger and stuff in college or in earlier in high school, but with guys, usually what they would
about
do
20.
is what was that? About
20 is when we reach our peak.
Yeah. Which I was so, mentally gone by that point as far as swimming. I qualified for Olympic trials when I was 16, and then I didn't get to compete. I went to the swim meet, and that's a whole different story. I actually got sent home, but my peak was probably 16 or 17. CIF, which is a local, high school championship meet. I won a couple events, and that was like my highlight. I never swam any faster than that.
So you went to state then, right?
Actually, out here in California, we don't have state.
Okay.
We just have our regional CIF, which is just called like California something. I don't remember, but
it's kind of like the equivalent to state, would you say, or not?
Yeah, it's pretty close.
Considering California is like the size of 4 states on the East Coast.
That's true. Yeah. So yeah, after that, I mean, in college I was totally burnt out. I really could care less about swimming, but I kept doing it because it's like, oh, I'm here with the full scholarship, and I get to, register for classes first and whatnot.
Did you break any records at all in school?
I think I did, just because I went to a school that wasn't super successful at swimming.
Right.
They were hoping that I would be that first, big NCAA qualifying impact guy.
Yeah.
But that didn't happen. It was totally the opposite, actually. But so after my third year, actually in college, I got kicked off the swim team as well. So it wasn't because I wasn't performing. I was performing okay. It was more because my coach was telling me that I'm not like the leader I should be and whatnot, and that was true. I definitely wasn't leading the group. I mean, I was probably a bad influence on everybody, not a good one. But so, I kind of floated through college, got a job as a swim instructor, because that's all I knew is, swimming. It's all I knew well anyway, because I did that for, most of high school. I was waking up at 5 o'clock in the morning, going to practice and all that.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, teaching kids how to swim. I mean, that was good for a while, getting puked on. It's always fun with little kids. I don't know if you guys have taught little kids how to swim, but it can be, it's an interesting, thing. You can, it's kind of a cool thing because when they do learn how to swim, you see how much the parents appreciate it, and it is cool to hear the stories of like, oh, my kid fell into the pool, but he knew exactly what to do and all that stuff. So, that was cool, but I was in the water 8 hours a day, and that can get really, really tiresome. But in that time, I'm still pursuing music. I'm still trying to make it big, right? Had a band called Fellway, and we were kind of into screamo.
Okay.
We were into bands like Thrice and Beloved and all that stuff. Which is actually an interesting side note on Thrice. I went to the high school where two of the guys from Thrice went to.
Okay.
And I think my sophomore year, I think Dustin Kensrue, the singer of Thrice, was a senior, and his sister was in my grade. And she actually asked me at that point, like, hey, my brother's starting a band. He's really good. And, people kind of knew that I played guitar and stuff. And they're like, hey, do you want to try out for my brother's band? They're really good. And I'm like, oh, I'd love to, but, I'm swimming right now. I swim like, 80 hours a week or whatever. So I probably can't be in a band. And I'm like, now I look back and I'm like, shoot, I just totally
yeah, that's funny.
Yeah,
I grew up in McHenry, Illinois, and it's like an hour out of Chicago. And I wasn't the same age bracket, but Matt Skiba from the Alkaline Trio went to my high school.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if you ever heard of Alkaline Trio.
Yeah,
they
absolutely.
toured with Thrice and stuff too.
Yeah, definitely. I remember them. They're still around. Yeah. I never thought they were that great though, to be honest. But yeah, so yeah, music was my main goal at that point. Of course, it's always hard. The music business is not an easy business. You gotta know people, right? And we had an opportunity to tour with a band called Taking Back Sunday.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. But that summer, our bass player and drummer, their parents said, no, you guys are going to summer school in college. So we couldn't do that. I think it was like a West Coast tour or something. Mm-hmm. And so that kind of fell through, and that was sort of the end of the band. But
so did you actually tour with them or play with them at all?
No, we didn't play with them. The biggest band we probably played with was Seosin. I don't know if you guys have heard of Seosin.
Yeah, I've heard of Seosin.
Yeah, they're from Orange County as well. So, that was probably the biggest band we played with as far as like an actual show. But we sold out some local places. We had a couple big shows where 500, 600 people showed up, and
sure.
It was cool, man. It's definitely a cool feeling when people you don't know are like singing along to your songs and stuff. It's a trip.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I wanted that really, really bad. But I didn't have all the means to do it. I didn't know the people. I wasn't like the most social person.
It's super competitive too.
Oh, it's way competitive. It's ridiculous.
It is.
I'm kind of glad it didn't happen really at this point. But
same with me, man.
Yeah. But I was the swim teacher during the day, if you will, rock star at night, right? And while I was teaching this 4-year-old girl one day, and the mom happened to ask me a question, which is like the most bold thing I've ever heard anybody do. And she basically just said, "Hey, are you seeing anybody right now?" I was like, "No, why?" And she said, "Well, I'm going to leave my card, give me a call if you're interested." And, she was one of those, good looking moms or whatever. But, so I decided to call her, and we hit it off, and she's my wife now. So
All right.
Awesome.
yeah, but it didn't come, super easy. Cause at first it was like, oh, cool, I'm hanging out with this, hot mom or whatever. But then it became like kind of a thing because she was like, well, what's your goal in life? And I was like, rock star, make it big.
Deal with it.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And she's like, well, what if that fails? What if that doesn't work out? And I was like, I don't know. I haven't really thought about that. I was kind of set on doing that. And she's like, well, there's this thing called God, right? And there's this idea of Christianity that I think would really help you out, based on after she got to know me a little bit. And I'm like, all right, I'm kind of skeptical of religion, and I'm kind of, I was sort of agnostic, if not atheistic in my view, just because, secular college. I always questioned stuff, but I was never like, I never thought that like there would be truth in something like Christianity, because I would see the people with the picket fence, you're going to hell if you don't believe in Jesus and that kind of stuff. So, but she challenged me. She's like, look, why don't you come to church and just check it out? Just take a look. And I was like, all right, I'm an open-minded guy. I'm open to stuff, so I'll come check it out. And I went, and boy, the pastor, it was like he was speaking right to me, like, I think he even mentioned like, you can't put your trust in worldly things. You can't, something about entertainment. So he said something about the music industry. I mean, it was just like, oh my gosh, what did you do? Set me up for this thing? It was kind of like, it felt like a conspiracy, But that sort of led me down the path of like, okay, maybe there's something to this whole Christianity thing. And it took about 2 years of looking at different things and, apologetics. And I think Lee Strobel came to the church, and he has, what was that book?
The Case for Christ?
Case for Christ, yeah. So, yeah, I read that. I read like C.S. Lewis, Mere Christianity. And that sort of led me down to the point where I was like, all right, there's something here. And it was really, people always talk about the intellectual aspects of Christianity. And I think it's very important. And I think more people need to be in tune with that, with apologetics. There's a lot of smart people out there that believe in God and can really argue the point of the existence of God. Absolutely. And the truthfulness of Christianity. But it was really the people at the church. I mean, it didn't seem like a cult. I mean, granted, it was a seeker-friendly church, and it was actually the church that I ended up working at for quite a few years. But it was the people there. The people there were really open and cool and just down to earth. And it was like, these people aren't crazy. They're not asking me to do these crazy things. They're actually trying to do good in the world, right? So that really opened me up, and I think it was 2007 that I stood up and I said, I believe, and declare my faith in Jesus. And the cliche story is, the rest is history. Things are all good, but that's not what happened to me.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. After that point was sort of the deprogramming process. And I went through the first year, 2007. It was just like, I was just confused, man. I don't know what was going on, and it was the election year, coming into 2008 and Obama. And so my conspiratorial mindset was sort of creeping in again during the election times. And of course, being someone that saw 9/11, saw, the whole Bush thing happen.
Yep.
I was very skeptical. But the problem was I didn't have anyone to talk to about these issues. And certainly, my girlfriend / fiance at the time, she wanted to help me understand stuff, but she didn't have the resources either. So obviously, what do you do? This generation, what do we do when we don't know something? We Google it, right? We go to YouTube, we start looking at different things on the internet. And what I ran into was people like David Icke, David Wilcock, Jordan Maxwell, a lot of these new age teachers and preachers who were talking about these issues, right? Like UFOs and conspiracies and the government and all this stuff. And they would talk about Jesus. They would talk about Christianity, but it wasn't the same Jesus. It wasn't the same Christianity as the one that I was hearing about on Sundays.